Hi, this is Joe. One of the issues that some people have had with this DF64P grinder and also with the DF64E grinder is when they adjust the grind size, they're getting coarse no matter what. There are a couple things that could be causing this. One of them could be that the grind size adjustment is made without the burrs spinning. So in some cases that can be it because it creates clogging and it creates particle sizes. So that's one of the issues. So you always adjust the grind size, you turn the grinder on, then you adjust the grind size. So let's get that one out of the way. The next one is, on this particular grinder, there's two screw heads that sit right about here. If this collar is not put on the correct way, it's going to tilt the burrs. So the first thing you can do if you're having an issue with the particle sizes being too large is simply remove these screws. There's a Allen wrench included. This Allen wrench is meant for taking this apart if you need to clean it. It's not going to avoid warranty or anything like that. You just have to take these screws out and it'll take about a minute, but you just take both of them out, take this off, and make sure these indentations are right over these screw heads. If this shifts and these indentations are not over the screw heads, it's going to cause the upper burr carrier to sit a little bit like that. It's going to be shifted a little bit. This is kind of exaggerated, but it's going to cause a tilt. When it causes that tilt, it's going to cause large particle sizes. So that's the first thing to check if you're having any issues with particle size. Usually we try and be careful not to do that, but when we were first doing these, we did send a couple out that they were installed incorrectly. But if you ever take this off, be very careful to always put this back on correctly and kind of line it up. Make sure that those screw heads are in those indentations. And then you just put this back on. When you put this back on, make sure you tighten one side a little bit and then the other side a little bit. And back and forth, back and forth. Don't tighten one screw all the way down. If you tighten one screw all the way down, it's going to cause an uneven tightness. So you want to tighten a little bit, especially at the end, and kind of shift it around as you're doing that so that it's goes on smoothly. Kind of shift the upper burr carrier a bit as you're tightening it. Once it's pretty tight, you're going to want to shift like this. Give it a tighten. Give it a little bit of a tighten. Tighten a little bit. And tighten a little bit. This should fix the majority of the problems. Another issue can occur, and sometimes I've seen this happen during shipping. There's a compression fitting on the bottom of this grinder that holds this lever in place. If the grinder gets bumped hard during shipping, sometimes that will loosen this and the lever is not going to be in the right position for adjusting the grind size properly. So if that is the case, it can still be fixed. It is harder to fix than this, but it's still adjustable. And what you would do is you flip the grinder upside down, and you have to pry these feet off. They're glued on. So you just, well, they have some kind of adhesive. You put them aside and be careful not to get them dirty or anything like that. If you get them dirty, it's going to be hard to stick them back on. So there's 4 of these. There's a 5th foot pad over here, or base pad over here. You do not have to remove that. It does not have a screw underneath it. So we take just a standard Phillips head screwdriver, loosen these, put them aside, and you're going to take a flat screwdriver, and this side has the plug. The other side doesn't have the plug. Start with the other side. If you start with the plug side, you're going to have a hard time getting this base off. So start with the other side, and you lift this up, and as you're lifting it up, you're feeding the cord through this hole. Just give it plenty of space. You want to feed it so that this can kind of hang off to the side. Once you're able to access this, there's a cable tie that holds this black box in place. You're just going to snip that. Pull this up, and you're not going to put the cable tie back in, but you're going to lift this aside, and you're going to get a 1/2 inch nut driver. And you can use a socket, but it's a little harder with a socket because this has to be pretty firmly in place. So you want a 1/2 inch nut driver. Sometimes this doesn't fit properly on the nut because there's this metal that's in the way. So if it doesn't fit properly, there's 1, 2, 3 screws in here, and you loosen those. With the Phillips head screwdriver, you would loosen each one of them a little bit until you're able to get this 1/2 inch nut driver on here. Once it's on here, you can tighten it again. You just want it to have plenty of space to move. So after you do that, you're going to lay it on its side. Get all these tools out of the way, you don't want to scratch it. And you're going to lay it, you can kind of pick it up by the fork here. And it's easier if you're right-handed to lay it like this. If you're left-handed, lay it the other way. So one of the things I like to do is put a microfiber cloth or a paper towel over the grinder so you don't get fingerprints on it. And then while this is laying on its side, you're going to apply pressure to loosen this nut. Okay, you loosen it maybe a turn. And as that's loosened, you're going to pull the lever over, and you're going to spin the burrs with your other hand. Spin the burrs, and you're going to keep shifting this back and forth a little bit. Maybe shift it, see if the burrs touch. If they don't touch, loosen it up again. You don't want to be moving this. There's this metal disc here. You don't want to move that when you're moving the lever. So the whole idea of loosening this is loosening it so that this lever, when you turn it, is not turning that disc. So you loosen it up. You can kind of hold this driver in place, and then as it's being held in place, you move the lever. So it sounds kind of complicated. It's really not. This is taking a while since I'm making a video, but I can do this in about a minute. So once the burrs are touching, they're touching right now, and you kind of listen for it. You move it, and you keep spinning the burrs. You find the touch point. Once you find the touch point, you move it slightly up so that the burrs are not touching anymore, because you don't want to damage the burrs. And then you take this and you move it down while holding this handle. You move it down, and you have to kind of keep shifting it back and forth so you find that. Right there. Once it's at the correct spot, you tighten the nut driver with one hand and you kind of hold this in place with your thumb and you tighten it up. Okay, once it's tightened, look down in here and watch that disc. If that disc isn't moving with the lever, then it's not tight enough. So the reason that sometimes it shifts during shipping is there's a compression thing that's holding this lever in place, and if this gets jarred, sometimes that'll come loose and it won't, the lever won't be in the proper position. So that's one of the ways that you can solve the over coarseness problem. So once you're done, you can take this box back. You could always find a cable tie if you want and re-cable tie it. It's probably not 100% necessary, but then you just take this and you pull this at the same time. Make sure these wires are not covering this box. Push these down. You want these wires below the box, and you just kind of pull down on the cord as you're easing this base cover in place. When it's flat, you take the screws and you put them back in. And that's all there is to it. This video is a lot longer. You can really do this in maybe less than 5 minutes.